You who don't know, I'm Lisa McCauley, the library director, and I am so excited to have you all here with us this morning. We have library staff, we have library friends, we have library trustees, we have the library board liaison to the Board of Selectmen, Diana Yaisley, here up front. We also have the first select woman, Wendy Max-Studis, here to hear everything that Dr. McCauley has to tell us. We are so excited to have Dr. Maria McCauley, the ALA president, or the American Library Association president, here with us today. She is actually a Simsbury native, and I am thrilled to say that her start in libraries started right here in this town. So that is why this is so significant for all of us today. And what you may not know is that Holly McGrath, the president of the Library Board of Trustees, is actually a Simsbury High School classmate of Dr. McCauley.
Class of 1991.
And Mary Ann O'Neill, who's on the Library Board of Trustees as well, her daughter was a high school classmate of Dr. McCauley. And I want to recognize Dr. McCauley's family in the back. Thank you for joining us today. Following the talk, we have a delicious luncheon provided by the Library Board of Trustees. Special thanks to them. And I would like to bring up Holly McGrath to introduce Dr. McCauley, her high school classmate.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Holly McGrath, and it truly is an honor to introduce Dr. Maria McCauley, one of my friends from high school. And looking back at our days in town, it is not a surprise that she has gone on to lead libraries and advocate for libraries, and sorry, I'm going to get started here. Become a global thought leader in the library leadership space, advocating for inclusiveness, intellectual freedom, and an ambitious vision of library services for all. She is the director of the City of Cambridge Library, where she has a talented team of 166 staff members. She works closely with 3 boards across the city to achieve inclusive library services for all. And she has expanded its branch hours by 54 plus hours per week. She has opened a net zero Valente branch library and launched a STEAM program, the first public makerspace in Cambridge. And Maria has eliminated fines, led an opt-out kindergarten library campaign, which resulted in a 95% registration rate. She started a social work program, deepened the reach of the library's digital equity work, and prioritized the library's anti-racism, equity, and inclusion efforts. This all lines up with the person that I knew in high school. After starting her career in circulation reference services, she went on to be a director in Santa Monica, a director of libraries in the city of Somerville, and earned her Bachelor of Arts from Ohio Wesleyan University, a Master of Library and Information Science from the University of Pittsburgh, and a PhD from Simmons. I know that our library staff is super excited to hear from a fellow librarian who's committed to doing the work and lifting up the community. Maria has also worked on the Committee on Legislation, representing Massachusetts to advocate for funding and legislative asks in Congress. Maria is a global thought leader in the library leadership space. She's spoken on topics as the evolving role of libraries, advancing inclusiveness, intellectual freedom, and courage and leadership for audiences in Massachusetts, across the United States, internationally, including Spain, South Korea, Kazakhstan, South Africa, and Simsbury. So she is putting us on the mark, and she's representing us at a national and international level. And I know that she believes in the power of people, in each one of you, to lift us all up, to connect with others, and truly advance libraries, because it's the heart of our democracy. So let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Maria McCauley. Thanks so much.
It was so special to be introduced by Lisa and Holly. And Holly, it's really wonderful to see you. I was telling my husband on the way and my family about the people that we might see in the room. And I was saying, when you're young, you don't really realize like what people's values are, or it might be a little confusing, but I talked about, like, now I recognize how Holly has just been this fierce advocate for people and for inclusiveness and for justice. And so, Holly, I recognize that in you, and I see that, more as an adult than I saw in my youth. But you are always so kind to me, and it's so wonderful to see you here. I am so excited to be here. I think that this might be, my favorite visit so far. Coming back to my hometown. I don't know if I delivered any of your newspapers back in the day or served you at Fitzgerald's grocery store, but I'm sure I probably did one or the other, or catered. I used to cater as well. Lots of jobs in Simsbury. And I loved the Simsbury Public Library. And in fact, one of the things I was remembering, because I had to kind of go back in time and think about my childhood experience coming here, I remember getting my library card here. And then I also remember, the different stages of my development coming here, for example, as a teenager, every day after school, and being told sometimes to quiet down a little bit. But Simsbury Public Library has always been in the vanguard. And I remember being proud of the library as a patron of the library, because I think I knew, just like all of you, I'm sure know, that it's special. I'm sure it continues to be well-resourced, and the staff members are so welcoming, and it always was just like a place of, I felt like it was a dignified space to be in, and to be both a child and an emerging adult in as well. And in fact, I've brought my kids here. We were taking care of my elder parents before they passed on, and so we would come mostly to their house to take care of my parents, but sometimes we would stop by and spend some time in the children's room. So thank you for such a warm welcome. And I want to continue on the theme about the meaning of libraries. Our libraries support living, learning, and dying. A library patron, Maura, shared with me that she was diagnosed with a brain tumor. She had brain surgery, and as part of her recovery, she told me she would walk 10 minutes to the library, rest, get a book, and then walk the 10 minutes home. And that was her practice while she was healing from this surgery. And so the library was more a sanctuary for her daily healing practice. Maura also shared this story with the foundation director and became a planned giving donor because of her really positive experiences at the library. And the library, as a symbol and a place of possibility, helped Maura in her recovery. One of our trustees, and I'm so glad to see the combination of staff, trustees, elected officials here. I think that says a lot about Simsbury. Thank you. And one of our trustees in Cambridge, Irene, she shared that she was considering becoming a trustee when she actually applied to become a trustee. We do interviews there in Cambridge, and she shared that as a child she was a ward of the state in New York, and that the library was her lifeline, where the librarian would help to feed her brilliant mind with books and also gave her nourishment, fed her meals. And for Irene, the library was this very special partner in her growth and development. And it was a place where she would go as she completed her graduate studies, and it was a community connection space always for her to live a robust life. Irene did become a trustee, and she works with other trustees to extend the impact of the library as lifelines to other people. Her story continues to have an amplifying effect. For example, sharing it here today and sharing it in testimony when I spoke about the impact of libraries at the State House in Massachusetts. Years ago, a young patron, Sanji, was battling a rare disease, one in which her parents brought her overseas to try to find a cure for her disease. They did all they could. And when Sanji was home, she would always come to the children's room. That was her happy place, and the place where she read her beloved books. Sadly, Sanji did pass away. However, her parents found ways to honor her life. One way was by working with the library to create a tribute in memory of Sanji. The Phantom Toll Booth was Sanji's favorite book. I know my daughter has recently read it, and the publisher gave permission for us to reproduce the book jacket on a plaque in Sanji's memory, which now hangs in the children's room. For many, our libraries are our lifelines. Our libraries are where individuals heal, fulfill their intellectual curiosity, find sustenance, and cultivate peace. Every day, our libraries help people in their living, in our shared work, and we make connections and foster goodwill. We plant seeds for healthy community partnerships and coalitions. And it can be challenging. Many libraries across the United States are facing freedom to read challenges. And it is vital for us to tap into community when we serve our libraries and when we advocate for our libraries. And I'm sure in Simsbury, like every place, there are there are people who are suffering in the community too, and sometimes that is part of your own, dealing with situations, and we probably see it more in the city, but where we do have to both help patrons, but also make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. When intellectual freedom is under attack and our books are being pulled from shelves at libraries, our library services help patrons to live their lives, their best lives, and our libraries help people to see themselves through literature. Our head of youth services, Megan Albright, she introduced me to the scholarship of Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop. Dr. Bishop, a scholar of multicultural children's literature, wrote, "Books are sometimes windows, offering views of worlds that may be real or imagined, familiar or strange. These windows are also sliding glass doors. Readers only have to walk through, in imagination, to become part of whatever world has been created or recreated by the author. And when lighting conditions are just right, a window can also be a mirror." And many libraries have a commitment they've actually stepped in more to a deeper commitment to improving people's lives as societal challenges have grown. Our libraries, they support living, learning, and they strengthen community connection. They promote literacy, preserve culture, and ensure access to information. And I think we all know in this room that our libraries are the hearts and hubs of our communities. I wanted to share a little bit about the Cambridge Public Library, what's happening nationally, what's happening with pro-library legislation and concerning library legislation. And then I want to have a conversation with all of you and open it up for questions. So I have a lot of content, so I will kind of pick and choose so that we have time to have a good discussion. So challenges. Challenges include the right to read challenges, budget cuts, concerns about the economy, an uncertain economy, the proliferation of misinformation, and concerns about recent federal actions that can affect funding or the way that people do their work in libraries. The economy is uncertain. There's low consumer confidence, a tight job market, and a decrease in revenues in some communities. And even in Cambridge, that has a pretty healthy economy, we are facing uncertain times. We know that we're not in a growth area. So I've been at Cambridge while we've had this wonderful growth in services across the city, but we're not in a growth area right now. I think you're all aware of the threats that have happened to the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and even though that was restored, which is great, less staff, and we still need to fight for funding on behalf of IMLS, and because IMLS, of course, distributes all of the funds across the United States, mostly through state libraries. I know that there are also concerns about AI and the integrity of AI sources and some developers. And also, I know that library workers are grappling with, how do we help patrons to understand and use AI in a safe and effective and a manner where we're using good resources. Does anybody know how many libraries are across the United States? I didn't know either until somebody told me. Did anybody raise their hand? There are 125,000 libraries of all types across the country. And there are over 366,000 library workers who are advancing library services, information literacy, and of course, championing intellectual freedom. In 1876, during the Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia, 103 librarians responded to a call for a convention of librarians to be held at the Historical Society of Pennsylvania. The aim of the convention was to enable librarians to present their work and to do it more easily and at less expense. Attendees came from as far west as Chicago and even as far as England. And there was a register passed around at the end of the conference for everybody to sign who wanted to become charter members. And that was the birth of the American Library Association. The American Library Association is the largest nonpartisan, nonprofit organization dedicated to America's libraries. For nearly 150 years, ALA has provided resources for information professionals to transform their communities through essential programs and services. It is a unifying institution that scaffolds emerging libraries and library staff as we forge the future of library services. As many of you know, it's headquartered where? In Chicago. And there is an office in Washington as well. And there are many different kinds of members. So we have library workers who are members. We have library supporters who are also members. And I invite you to become a member of ALA by going to ala.org today. And there's a lot of good content on the website. So intellectual freedom, I'm sure you are all aware, is a core pillar of our work. And last year, there were 821 attempts to censor library books and materials across all library types reported to ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom. And of course, we know these are just reported numbers. There probably are many more examples of censorship that we just don't know about, or people quietly know about. It is the third highest number of book challenges recorded by ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom since it began documenting censorship of library materials in 1990. Can anybody shout out the content of the majority of those challenges? Or raise your hand? Yes. Yes, that is one area. That is a big area in the United States. Civil rights, thank you. Civil rights, people of color, LGBTQ plus, and other stories about identity. And this is a lot of organized movements. I don't know, has anybody seen the film The Librarians yet? So, oh, one person, Holly? Yeah, okay. It is amazing, right? So I just was in New York City on Tuesday, and I moderated a panel at the New York Public Library with the filmmakers, and one of the librarian heroines, Martha Hickson, who was a school librarian, and there is just like this big effort to fill school boards with people who will censor library materials. And there was a list that was being sent around, 850 titles, which basically was duplicated and then brought to many people, many libraries, both school libraries and public libraries. And in the film, there was one example of this one area in Texas where 20 of the 40 school librarians were fired. So people were being arrested, librarians, and fired because of their desire and willingness to protect intellectual freedom. It is a really phenomenal film, and the filmmakers are so dedicated to really advocating for and telling this story of what is happening in our libraries in a lot of places, and also, of course, celebrating these librarians who stood up and said, we're gonna protect the kids because the kids are crying. There's like visuals of kids crying as they're taking books, like taking all the books out of some of these. Can you imagine, like, Simsbury Public Library children's floor, all the books being removed? I don't think the Simsbury community would put up with that. Unite Against Book Bans is a way, if you are energized, to help. There is a website, and there's a lot around calls to action around defending the right to read. So there's a lot of legislative activity, so I just want to kind of give you some highlights. So let's start with pro-library. In Connecticut, thank you, Connecticut, you've passed 2 pieces of freedom to read legislation, one in 2023 and 2025, and 10 states have passed freedom to read, pro-library, pro-intellectual freedom legislation. In Massachusetts, we have something called an Act Regarding Freedom of Expression that this fall passed through the Senate and is being deliberated in the House. And we're very hopeful that, similar to Connecticut, that it will get passed. And then there's a lot going on in other parts of the country. For example, in Arizona, there's HB 2008, which prohibits public school libraries in Arizona from using public funds to pay dues or membership fees to professional library associations that are dedicated to promoting and supporting libraries and librarians. And there are some similar bills like that in Iowa, Texas, and Louisiana. And you'll really see that come out in this film because librarians are being vilified in some communities as being like groomers and really terrible. And you see like clips from the different school board meetings, so it's very visceral when you watch that film. In Wyoming, sexually explicit materials in libraries requirements was drafted, and a hearing over it was conducted this summer. The bill defines sexually explicit in very broad, vague terms, and it would impose fines of up to $50,000 for each violation on libraries who violate the requirements. And then closer to home in New Hampshire, there are some bills that require school districts to have and post challenge policy. This is actually best practice in the library field, so that's good. However, the bill has worrying procedural requirements. The language justifying removing materials is very broad, quote unquote, harmful to minors, age inappropriate, or otherwise offensive or inappropriate. So while the harmful to minors is defined, the broad language opens up the possibility of removals based on viewpoint discrimination. And second, the initial challenge is to the principal. So if the principal decides to remove the book, there is no apparent route to appeal. And then just recently, this isn't legislation, but it's something to know. In Tennessee, the Tennessee Secretary of State warned that public libraries must review their collection for age appropriateness and consistency with President Trump's executive order on gender identity. And ALA has denounced this directive, along with 33 major publishers and national library and literacy groups. So those are just a few examples. There's a lot going on, continues to go on across the United States, and actually it's global. So on my global visits, libraries in Europe are facing challenges. For example, one public library system in Germany, very far right group, maybe a neo-Nazi identified group, put bookmarks and reading lists that they were branded exactly like the library, and they had volunteers put them in books at the library. So it looked like librarians were saying, these are great books to read. I want to switch to talking a little bit about civic engagement. And Holly talked about this in her opening, about how important libraries are in fostering civic engagement. And I like to say democracy happens at the library. Voting happens at libraries. Citizen education happens at libraries. Even swearing in ceremonies happen at our libraries. And like all of you who are here today, which is just so joyous to see, people connect and they have dialogue. And they're 3D, which is so beautiful from coming out of the pandemic to be, and kids, I always try to say, that's why you should be off screen. I'm sure maybe one of you is on screen right now, but being in a space is such a special thing with other human beings. Many of you participate in library card campaigns. I'm sure Simsbury does this. And ALA has a national campaign in the fall, in September, to encourage people to get their library cards. And there's also a voter ready read campaign to encourage, it's bipartisan, to encourage people to register to vote. And my daughter, Grace, when she got her library card in Cambridge, they get their library cards at age 5 because they come into their full rights, and we go over that with the parents and the child who gets their card. Grace kept on saying, I don't know why, but I just can't stop smiling. And I think we all know why, right? It's such a special day when somebody gets their library card. It represents agency. Right? Like, it's one of the things that kids can do is actually go to a library, roam the shelves, pick out what they want to read and explore. And I mentioned before that I remember getting my library card here, and I can describe it for you. It was a blue card, and it had kind of like the old credit card readers, like the metal on it, and it would go ch-ch. And I loved that. So I would play library, like the ch-ch, and, the due date stamping too, that was a big thing. And then that came back to me when I first started in Cambridge, like 30 years ago, as like a substitute at the circulation desk. And I did get chastised by somebody about not doing the due dates. We were still doing due date stamping at that time, about not doing it. I was probably being a little creative with the way that I stamped. And so I was corrected that I had to do it more orderly. But in Simsbury, I remember a lot of special things at the Simsbury Public Library. And this was the yellow, I think you use it for archives now, but the children's room, that was the library. And I remember getting, and Holly, I don't know if you remember this, there were and Mrs. O'Neill, there were these plastic kits, like books and activities together. I loved those. And then I'm sure as a teen, got like the camcorders, like the old school huge camcorders. And I just thought it was amazing that the library had camcorders that we could check out. And I think you even had fishing poles at that time. I don't know if I ever checked out a fishing pole, but I thought it was pretty cool that you had them. Internet connection. I just want to make a mention of that, and I probably will do my wrap up then. Still, and I know in Simsbury you're well resourced and probably have really good connectivity. A lot of libraries, a lot of people still don't have connectivity in the United States. And so there's a lot of work done. For example, big library systems a lot of them will use E-rate funds. So that kind of federal funding is also important. I'm just skipping over a bunch and going to my conclusion here. So we've talked about how our libraries address societal challenges, that we are seizing opportunities and delivering innovative programs and services. I know you have a great maker space that I peeked my head in before, so that people can live their very best informed lives. And where there is a need, our libraries and library workers, staff members, partner and will work really hard to find creative solutions. I hope that this talk spurs thinking about how you and your library can continue to help to advance learning and thriving and connection for community members. And we are more resilient and more effective when we lift each other up. And I think that that was really hinted at, and I loved that in the intros too, about, that it's not just about the delivery of services. We are in this space lifting each other up. As centers of learning, knowledge, and gathering hubs, our libraries advance our democracy and help our communities to connect, learn, and thrive. I want to thank you for all of your work helping your communities to thrive through wonderful Simsbury Public Library services. I want to thank the staff and our library champions who are here today. And I want to thank Lisa and Holly for their really lovely invitation to be here. So I'm open to questions. And if there's anybody here who I know also that I haven't mentioned, please give a shout out. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, helping to level that playing field. So a lot of people don't have access. And in Cambridge, a place that people think of as like an intellectual center and a healthy economy, a lot of people still don't have connectivity. And so we have a digital equity initiative there, and many libraries also have digital equity initiatives and rely on E-rate funding. We don't use E-rate funding in Cambridge. It's really about, we don't want to filter any materials. So digital equity work, it's not only the broadband access and access to technologies, but it's also the upskilling that is so very important. And many people, I'm sure there are people in Simsbury who need help with technology. If I was living here, I would need help. I do need help with my technology. And so we have digital equity specialists, a team that works with especially low income and vulnerable community members to help them to gain access to technology and learn. And we have a digital navigator specialist. She, over the past 18 months, she's done 788 consultations and has taught technology classes. So that's just one example of Dana's great work. And then a lot of libraries like yours are doing STEAM learning opportunities. And in Cambridge, we did not have, in a city that had like private maker spaces, there was no public maker space. And so creating not only the maker space, but really as an equity initiative, this STEAM program in the library where we're partnering with many different nonprofits, including this one group called Innovators for Purpose, where the kids come every day after school and they are designing, they're exploring AI, they are working with Kendall Square, so biotech, technology companies, and out of the graduating cohort last year, all 8 went to some kind of college, 2 got into Ivy League schools. And these are Black and brown kids who, even in Cambridge, there's a gap in testing of high school students, depending on your demographic backgrounds and circumstances. So that is a direct example of trying to help with equitable services to our community. So those kids go on to pursue college, and then they come back and hopefully they can get jobs and maybe afford a place to live in Cambridge.
More of a comment, okay. When you brought up the toys from the old children's room, it reminded me of my son, who's probably 4, coming in, and we would always take out of the library on loan a puppet, an eagle puppet, that we had to bring home every time. And I don't know why I never bought it for him, but it was just it's triggered that memory. One thing I do want to say about the library, and I noticed it the other day, I'm sure it's communal across the country, is the use of the children's room for young moms to bring their kids as a place to connect. I know that that's something I did, I'm sure everybody did, because you could go, your kids could play, and you could sit there, maybe if you had a friend there. But just, I don't know if there's a trend to make sure that that keeps as a function of libraries going forward. But
Yeah, thank you. So I think I remember the puppets too. And so that is, I think it's like one of the great ways young families come back to the library. You might have been away for a little while as you're doing your old adulting 101. You come back and you might have family, and then you definitely come back to the library. Libraries do incredible work, and not only providing places for play, song, reading, early literacy, but also helping to teach parents and caregivers how to take care of their kids. In Cambridge, we have something called 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. Other libraries do as well. Do you have it here? Oh, that's so excellent. So through the Curious Storage Foundation, we make sure that there's that people know it's so important to read to your babies right when they're born. And a lot of people just don't know that, especially if you just haven't been around like early childhood experts. And so that's one initiative we have. And we work with other partners to send a baby bags out to Cambridge residents when their kids have and when they have babies, they get board books for free sent to their home as like a little welcome packet. I don't know if you do that here too, but that's another creative way. A lot of libraries have pumping areas, because people co-work, and some libraries have little nesting places for their babies to use, like cribs on the go. We don't do that because I think that there is kind of a philosophy that people should be interacting with their kids when they're at the library, but I can totally understand as a parent that would be a really convenient thing. And universities are trying to do a better job, as not everybody's, it's not as like a typical, there are lots of different kinds of graduate students and university students, and many of them have kids that they're taking care of while they're also trying to pursue their degrees. Yes.
Does the ALA have provide programs or guidance for local libraries that are running into freedom to read threats? Are there particular things that you do?
Excellent question. Thank you. So yes, there are a couple things. There's the Office of Intellectual Freedom, where I do encourage, if anybody faces censorship threats, to report that. And then they will provide a lot of guidance. And the Freedom to Read Foundation is a nonprofit partner that has shared staff that can help with that as well. And then there's also, we do chapter advocacy workshops. If you have a person who does a lot of advocacy and is involved with, for example, the Connecticut Library Association, there are opportunities to get these kinds of trainings, and there are helplines. So New England has a shared helpline. I don't know if you've heard of this, that was just recently set up, where people were trained by ALA legal experts to then go out to their communities and help. And there is one in New England, and I can forward that on to Lisa to make sure that those of you who are interested and have that contact person and phone number. Lisa.
One of the things that the Simsbury Public Library is very fortunate to have, and we have for about 30 years now, I think 31 this year, is a business and career center librarian, and she works full time, and she supports, career seekers, people changing careers in life. She supports entrepreneurs, and she also supports the businesses in the community. Can you speak to how libraries support economic development in your community?
Yeah, that is a big, thank you. That is a big area across many public libraries. And there actually are national grants available for business, providing business resources. And many libraries choose to focus on that, especially if they have a lot of entrepreneurs and small business people. And sometimes they have, it's really wonderful that you have like a specialized business. And I remember Mrs. Robinson. I think she was the business librarian for many years in Simsbury. My parents used to go see her about, different things. But many public libraries provide that, and academic. So one of the things that entrepreneurs, a great referral, is that if they they're getting some resources perhaps through their public library, but academic libraries pay for a lot of research and often have like a business librarian as well. And many academic libraries are open to the public. I don't know what the UConn system is like here, or other universities, if they're open or not, but those are other great resources. So business libraries are really wonderful. In Cambridge, we work with the Community Development Department, which provides a lot of support for the business community. So we partner with them and we co-host things. And then we also work with the Office for Workforce Development too, trying to create doors of opportunity for more vulnerable populations. So we try to do both. Yes.
Can you speak to any outreach initiatives or ways that ALA is working to serve people who either don't come to the library, don't think that they have any use at the library, don't think the library is cool, etc.?
What? I want to talk to those people. Yeah, so there's a lot of marketing materials available, and there are some different strategies that I've seen different libraries do, based on the discussions that I've seen. Some people work with realtors for families, new families who are moving in, or they might get lists of new folks or partner with a welcoming type of community organizations and make sure that the flyers are being dropped about the library, or get your library card. Some libraries even do let me introduce you to your personal librarian. And from the start of being a new community member, they are actually, Maria, your librarian's here. How can I help you? A lot of libraries have now virtual or on Zoom book a librarian research services. That's another thing. And then, of course, and all of this, going out and doing outreach, partnering with the Chamber of Commerce, making sure that you're all getting out into the community when you are able to. And then, so it's inviting people in and then being embedded in the community. And at the library in Cambridge, we host, I think it's about 4,000 programs a year. And almost all of those, except for maybe the story times, are all co-produced with a community partner, because that's a way that you really help. The community partner is going to be excited about the library and tell the story and invite their own, specific community in. Yeah, good question.
Other benefit to those community partnerships, not only are you leveraging your
You got it.
About 85% of our programs, aside from Storytime, are co-partnered with some organization or town department.
It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Yeah. Hi.
So, actually, to piggyback off one of the points that Lisa just made, here I know our public library does a lot of partnerships and programming for seniors, but also people with disabilities and persons, and creating access as well as programming for sensory programming. And
That's
it's
great.
been very well received in our community. And I'm wondering if the ALA has any type of initiatives or supports for other libraries to make sure that there's access for people with disabilities, as well as programming that may not exist elsewhere in the community that is needed for individuals with disabilities.
Yeah, there are a lot of resources that ALA shares, and then there are specialists who work on in that space. And then I would also say that your state libraries and the state itself offers great. I'm sure Connecticut does. I know Massachusetts does. Offers really good webinars and training on accessibility, especially with digital transformation. Even like down to the, is this a good vendor that provides? They're not really supposed to talk about like specific vendors, but if something's not fully accessible, they will share that. I was just on a digital accessibility forum through the state of Massachusetts yesterday. Yes, busy week, yeah. Yes.
Especially with the state of things and the state of everything, I think a lot of us probably become very anxious, worried. And I wanted to ask you specifically, I think libraries provide a lot of support in protection and community that need it. And I wanted to ask you how's it in Cambridge, like, what is it, what's your favorite way of supporting and fostering community protection?
Yeah. Thank you. It's such a good question. I think a lot about this. So, our library, we've done a lot of work over the years, and I've grown, as a leader too. Where during the pandemic, I started doing a regular messaging to all staff on a regular, like a routine message. That's just like one touch point. But also we've done a lot of culture work. So for example, and in Cambridge, we, say proudly, we are really we are dedicated to doing equity work. So what does that look like for internal? And then what does that look like for the public? I've already shared the ways that we deliver a lot of different kinds of services related to equity to the public. Another example is that when I first got to Cambridge, we really weren't providing a diverse speaker series, and so the team now has turned that around and really make sure that they try to cover the breadth of offerings of speakers and authors and content that will be that might resonate with the diverse Cambridge community. And then internally, we went through a whole process of developing our ways of being, or the way you might want to be in a room and work with people and be with people. And so these are guiding principles of how we create an inclusive, we aim to, right? We're not always perfect at this, but we aim to create an inclusive environment. And so an example of this that connects directly with our ways of being is inclusive meeting practices. So we do trainings and guidance for managers about making sure that you give people an opportunity to give voice, some kind of an icebreaker to get to know each other, and then making sure that you close with like pluses or wishes, and that you're doing your regular check-ins with staff, not just on the desk. And I know different places are different depending on scheduling needs, but those touch points, I think, try to help people to feel dignified at work and that the institution cares about them, because libraries, and governments can be very bureaucratic. So trying to, within all of the meeting, all of the all of the policies and guidelines and HR practices, to try to be real compassionate with people. And so I just had this conversation with my admin leaders. It's the combination of making sure that we are being fair and also being compassionate. And just one more thing I want to say about that is that our social worker is such a great source of support too, and our team members. So our three team members put together a support toolkit for staff members, and this includes information about how you get trauma-informed training. Our own social worker does these trainings for staff, will help staff members to navigate or unpack a really difficult situation. And we try to do really nice things for staff on Staff Development Day. And again, we are fortunate to have good funding from our friends and foundation. And we did like chair massages last year, which is hugely popular. Only 10 minutes each, because that's a lot of money and a lot of people. But it really felt good to just go into a quiet space and get a little shoulder rub. Hi.
The board and the library itself is about to undergo a refresh of our strategic plan. And so curious from you and your exposure, what are the emerging topics that we should make sure are taken into consideration as we evaluate?
Yeah, so great. I think planning is really important, so I'm happy to hear that. So I do think, listening to the community about Simsbury's hopes and dreams for the community and for the library is really important. And you'll learn a lot and be able to make cases based on the data you get. Making sure people are trained up on emerging technologies, including AI, both the positive things about it and also the areas to be concerned. And I know this is stressful for people to think about, but AI is around and people are using it. And so making sure that people know how to use it to the best, what they're really trying to achieve, and that it's a good source for them is, I think, really an important part of our work. But this ties really into information literacy, right? Like making sure that we're still delivering in whatever format good, sound information literacy practices for our patrons. Making sure that we understand how to, and this is kind of like some of this internal work that I'm talking about, like how do we make sure that we are being an inclusive place both for our staff members and also our community members, to do a scan, of course, of your community to see if there are pockets of people who aren't being reached or might feel left out, and can you do special outreach to make sure that I don't know if people are, I'm assuming there are many more immigrants than when I lived in Cambridge, and there were immigrants when I lived in Cambridge, but not in Cambridge, in Simsbury, but trying to make sure, for example, if there's a community of recent immigrants, are you reaching out to them and including them in the conversations about the future dreaming of the Simsbury Public Library? I think it's really important to think about, are there services that are missing that you've been wanting to do? What does that actually mean? And change can be hard too. So thinking about and getting staff input about what are there things that we might want to let go of and move more toward. I think it's really important to make sure that staff are able to have a voice there. One example in our two examples, one from public and one from staff, of planning, different planning things that we've done. Our number one piece of feedback from our planning process 6 years ago, and we're in a new planning process now, was that people wanted more hours. They wanted more branch hours in the evenings and on the weekends. And so that is great data. You're able to bring that then to your town, right? And to ask for those resources, or when it's right timing to ask for those resources. And so that really built the laid the foundation for us to expand our branch hours. An example from staff members, when we were thinking about the build for the makerspace, we didn't have the first renderings didn't have a bathroom on that in the makerspace itself, because there was a bathroom, like you had to go up some stairs, but there was a bathroom like just up the stairs. And staff members were really like very vocal about the importance of having a bathroom in the makerspace, and they were so right. So we made sure that we made that change, and it did increase our costs, but it really wouldn't have functioned well if we didn't have a bathroom in the makerspace.
In the makerspace, do you do any kind of video production?
Yes, we do. So we have, this makerspace has an audio video production studio, like a green screen and a little podcast room, and a mixing space, augmented reality and virtual reality room, and then the primary maker space with all different kinds of maker tools and digital fabrication as well. And in the mornings, it's closed for school partnerships and nonprofit partnerships. Again, that's part of our equity work. And then in the evenings and on weekends, it's open to the public. And everything is completely free. I know a lot of communities can't do that. Hi.
Just asking about the grants you mentioned at the federal level. I mean, I am, as a LS, thinking about how that monies has shrunk, but I'm also wondering about how that will trickle down to our local libraries.
Yes.
Especially, I'm concerned about this as we start to think about our town budget.
Yeah. Lisa, how does it work in Connecticut? Do you apply for grants, or are you given money, like distributed money from the state?
IMLS funding in Connecticut goes to support the delivery service that goes throughout the state, and it also supports the staff at the Library Service Center and part of the library development. So that's how our IMLS funding is spent.
Okay, yeah, so each state gets to decide how it distributes the funds. So it sounds like the network of databases and some virtual resources is and the delivery of materials. And that's similar actually to Massachusetts. We also have grant funding available for seed projects. And so we've gotten we did for example, a garden, a sustainability garden with our high school students, and we had a mini grant from the state for that. So it depends on, and some use it to fund preservation and archives projects. Some state libraries support their own libraries. So it's very flexible in a way. But it is these federal funds are really important to libraries all across the United States, and especially in rural communities. I think that they matter the most. And then there are grants that you can apply to, big national grants for leadership practices or demonstration projects.
Can you talk a little bit about how you're seeing AI adoption and practical application within any of the libraries? Are there early adopters out there?
Yeah.
We're kind of like watching and seeing a lot.
Yeah, I think academic institutions are more in the vanguard, and there are some libraries that are more very tech forward. For example, I was at Lehigh in December, and all of their librarians are like developing the tools, working with and exploring AI, and their whole thing at Lehigh is open access, so they're doing open access AI projects. So it might be using AI for different kinds of cataloging or tagging, and then public libraries. I've really seen that people are just getting kind of their learning feeling more comfortable with learning how to use like generative AI to help patrons who are trying to use it as well. I'm trying to think of any, I think Boston Public Library, they're doing a project with digitization. It's kind of like a research library, and they're doing some AI applications, testing out how it will work to process some materials that they haven't been able to touch. So I would just encourage you, if you haven't delved into it, and I'm sure your state library probably has training and resources, and ALA does, school libraries do. I think school libraries are a little bit more advanced than public libraries in the information literacy and training piece, just because their students are using it. And so they need to learn how to help their students use it. There's a good framework by both ASL, which is the Association of School Libraries, and ACRL, the Association of College and Research Libraries, which are major divisions under ALA. They both have guidance around AI. So you could go to the website and look at that. And I think ASL has a book. I wouldn't be surprised if PLA is not in the process of developing something right now as well. Is anybody going to the PLA conference? Yay. Great. Wonderful. In March. Yeah, hi.
So libraries do a million things. When you run into somebody in the wild that thinks libraries are outdated, they're just for books, what's your 30-second pitch to advocate for us?
Oh, it's like a challenge. What is your name?
My name's Nick.
Nick. Okay, 30 seconds. I feel the pressure. I'm like sweating now. Okay, let's see here. Oh my gosh. So Nick, when was the last time you went to the library? Years. Okay, I invite you to come with me to the Simsbury Public Library. I'd love to walk you around, and you can see their listing of all the different kinds of programs, from lectures to book discussions to trainings on how to use the latest technologies. Have you taken a class at the library?
I didn't know you offered classes.
Well, see, I want to bring you to the makerspace at Simsbury Public Library. Maybe we can make buttons together. I think that would be a lot of fun. What do you say?
I love it. Sounds great.
And we'll get your library card too. How'd I do, Nick?
You did great.
Thank you, everybody.
For over 40 years, SCM has been the voice of our town,
bringing us together through local programming,
education,
and live broadcasts.
SEM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings,
and celebrating milestones
like our high school graduations.
But today, SEM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SEM receives less revenue,
even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us
in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
your schools,
and your government
come together.